Thank you, Jim and Nancy. Are there questions? Mr. Buck.
Thank you. How long have you been doing the audit for TriMet?
We are in, I think, our 4th year, and we have 1 more year under our current agreement with TriMet, I believe.
I am familiar with the agency because you've done some audit for some other agencies, groups that I'm a part of. However, my question comes in, and more importantly, this is not to allege anything, so I don't want anyone to say or to think that there is something wrong or they're doing it. But as you continue to do this, and you've done it for a number of years now, for 4 years, what safeguards, what do you have in place of the persons who are conducting this to make sure they aren't just doing it out of familiarity? I'm so familiar with it that I just don't look at this.
Excellent question. One of the things that Moss Adams has done all along, and actually became a requirement just recently by virtue of changes in the audit standards, is a requirement to annually address the risks in an audit and to make sure you're reassessing the risks. And so I think we as a firm have always done a good job of doing a risk-based approach to the audit. What are the risks? But these standards highlighted and reinforced perhaps the procedures we were doing. So things that happen, first of all, brainstorming amongst our team. So every year we conduct a brainstorming session where we look at what's happened with TriMet over the year to try to reassess where are the risks this year that there could be. And again, not because management doesn't do a good job or doesn't have controls. There's inherent risk that errors could occur in financial statements or in the accounting process. So we reevaluate that. The audit standards also require that we introduce an element of surprise, if you will, or something new. So each year we challenge ourselves to come up with a new area to look at and to pick on. In terms of staff, there's kind of this divergence in what you want. On one hand, you want the same people because they become familiar and management doesn't feel like they have to train the auditors each year. But on the other hand, you want this fresh perspective. And we have had, Nancy and I have been similar on this job since day one, but we have had some new individuals that have been on site day to day directing our crew. So we have had some different individuals take a look and put their spin on it or approach to the engagement. So that's been beneficial. And right now, when we work with our clients, if, for example, you had a policy that required a rotation of the partner or key staff, we would meet that. Right now with our governmental clients, they've appreciated more, not the rotation, but having similar people so that they don't feel like they're constantly training the auditor, if you will, in the operational side of the entity. I don't know if that addresses that, but at least gives you some perspective.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, hey Jim, I'll have to disagree with you that accounting and audit is not exciting.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
you had me on the edge of my seat. So I appreciate that.
I'll slip you.
But I do have a question. You talked about the potential, the new upcoming standard, accounting standard. Are you at this point able to quantify the additional amount of liability that we may have to put on our books, or is it too soon?
It's too soon in the process. There's a number of elements that are being discussed that will have a bearing on that. One is just defining exactly what is the amount that should be recognized. And right now they're talking about, and it's probably more than you want to get into, but a discounted value of the expected benefits based on what employees are expected to have earned as of your balance sheet date. So you have to kind of calculate, well, you know, how much longer is that employee that's here on June 30 going to work, and then what would the present value of that benefit that they would earn at that point, and then also that discount rate that you use is also somewhat up in the air, especially when a plan is underfunded. There may be a mixture of a rate, so you might have to change the discount rate, which has a big bearing on that number. So anyway, it's too early in the process, and there'll be a number of changes, I'm sure, as they deliberate and hear from the community on that.
This is a big topic in the pension world, and Board Member Lerbuck and I have been. We just met this week with the consultants to the pension fund, and there's a lot of discussion about this, and it's early in the process, and we're very aware of it, but no decisions have been made by the industry yet, and there is a divergence of opinion, which Jim is alluding to about. So we can't make an intelligent guess on what it would be because one person will say this and someone else will say that. But we're very aware of that.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, just to follow on Beth's comment, we are looking at it very closely, and we've been concerned about the unfunded liability in the plants. Both plants are running fairly good right now. They definitely are. But we are watching that very closely. On page 6 of your report, it says accounting and this is in the negative balance for both fiscal years 2010 and 2009. Accounting and financial reporting for employers for post-employment benefits other than pension. Are you referring to the medical? Yeah, that's okay. The medical costs have costed.
Yeah, you have a plan to provide medical benefits to retirees, and that's outside of the pension. And so that's what that's referring to. OPEB for short, other post-employment. So it's the benefit you've offered employees post-retirement outside of the pension plan.
Carries you. That cost, just a final statement, you know, the economic disasters in this country that can be related to the banksters. But, you know, over the last 10 years, we've seen the big 8 auditors involved in compliance with some of these Enrons and the others that have happened. And that brings us all apprehension on the closeness of an auditor to any company when they come in. And it does cause them, you know, are you too familiar, are they too? It definitely does. Auditors got to earn their own way back now because some of that caused, I mean, just financial disaster out there for a lot of companies and a lot of employees that work for those companies. So that's why we ask those questions of you guys.
So they're perfectly good questions. You know, I can't address all the issues that are out there with those big international firms. Fortunately, we are not among them and not trying to emulate them. And at least with one of the firms that failed, you know, they had some pretty aggressive programs. And if you had followed the story of at least one of the firms in their demise, they had kind of a twofer program. They wanted $2 of consulting fees for every $1 of audit or compliance fees, and so they really pushed going out and driving new business, and that's never been a Moss Adams philosophy or an approach. And so Nancy and I can tell you majority of the work we do is on the compliance side. There's not that much consulting. And we don't push the consulting when we're doing the audit work because we are very concerned about the independence issue that you mentioned. So I think we've had a good firm policy that's kept us on the right side of those issues that ultimately led to the demise of some of those firms that you mentioned.
Good report. That was a good report.
A quick question. Is page 26 sort of the bottom line of our actuarial liability? And
yeah, that's the OPEB. And then I would add to that also the 2 pension plans that come, is that the pages following or before? Following, page 24. So really I would, let's see, what footnotes are these? Oh my gosh, there's so many pages to these footnotes. So beginning on page 21, footnote number 7. So I would follow that through to footnote number 8. There's several pages involved. Probably the key pages to pay attention to would be page 23, where you have the management defined benefit plan. There's a little table that shows the value of the assets and the accrued liability, and then for that plan. And then on 24 is the employee plan or the bargaining unit defined benefit plan. There's a table about the middle of the page, and there's a paragraph right below that. That table and that paragraph are key to understanding your funding status on that plan. And then finally, you picked up on page, what was it, 26, where the numbers are located for the OPEB or other post-employment benefit plan. Those would be the keys.
so, as accounting practices and financial management practices come together over the next year, we can anticipate that our operating financial statements will have some change, which would include some contribution to a reserve. Is that right? To provide for any anticipated liability?
Actually, maybe I'll divide this answer between Beth and I. There's two issues. There's the accounting side, but then there's the funding side, the operational issue. And the accounting for OPEB anyway does not necessarily follow the funding. So those are different decisions. The accounting you need to meet in order to get the clean opinion on your audited financials, and you're meeting that. So you are recording an accrual even though you're not funding the plan. And that's happened, I think, the last 2 years now. So you've actually recorded an expense and an accrual for your OPEB, even though you have not set money aside. You've just paid the benefits as retirees have the premiums and the costs, so forth, under the plan. The funding side is the issue that I think you're wrestling with. You've created a trust, as I understand it, and you're evaluating when does it make sense to begin actually putting money into the trust instead of just paying benefits as they're.
Thank you. That's what I was looking at in the accounting.
Sure.
That we're adopting accrual and have adopted accrual measures, and now we're evaluating how to provide for cash-based contributions to those. And the accrual requirements of GAAP or whatever it might be may be greater in consequence on paper than they may be in terms of cash, but yet our ability to provide cash to that is an increasingly significant priority. We've got work to do, so I think we're all saying.
Well said.
Yeah. Well, and that liability is calculated on the current contract. It doesn't take in, current contract, it doesn't take into account any kind of renegotiated or as a result of arbitration, renegotiated contract. So just keep that in mind.
And I guess just before we go, I don't want to get out of here without expressing our thanks to the board and clearly for making some what we believe are excellent choices on your finance staff, and really to Beth and also to Lori Tasker, really professional, provided excellent facilitation to our audit procedures, and clearly do a good job in drafting the financial statements. So we want to express our appreciation for their efforts. Not always fun to deal with auditors, but they're very professional about it, and look forward to the process, and it shows as we performed our audit.
Yeah, perhaps I can make a statement also, which is, the transportation business is not really any of our area of expertise. So I just want to thank Beth and her group, as well as Moss Adams, for your flexibility in making yourselves available to the group, as well as individually, to help us understand what we're being charged with. My takeaway is that we have a highly competent finance staff, which is very comforting. So again, just thank you for your flexibility.
I would agree with Keene. Particularly Nancy took time to meet with both of us individually to meet our schedules, which is very appreciated. Having worked, Dr. Bethel asked a good question in terms of just how long you've worked in TriMet, and I've worked with the two of you for the last 4 years, as she said, and very impressive just how you approach it and your reporting. And I know that goes hand in hand with the TriMet staff, Beth and Lori, just taking the time as well. And so really appreciate it. It's nice to hear new board members feel the same way already. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just add my thanks to Jim and Nancy, and in particular for kind of outlining some of the challenges that are ahead, and putting in pretty succinct terms, and being flexible enough to meet all of us individually and answer our questions. So thank you very much, and congratulations to Beth and Lori on that.